Now that you've been back at it a little while, I know that there were a lot of things you had to get, acclimated to, like the transfer portal and all the things that go with that and NIL and stuff. But the transfer portal doesn't just take, it gives. And you kind of referred to it there. What has been your relationship with just kind of, working that thing and seeing both the negatives and also the positives that come from it?
Well, first of all, I don't know if y'all read what Dabo said the other day. It's true. It's chaotic right now. It's a mess, and it's a broken system. And anybody that says it's not is foolish, because it is. And if the NCAA doesn't get a hold of this, it's not going to be good for football. And I think it's just right now. It's every day you have to re-recruit the kids that are on your campus. We had a couple of kids, good players, good kids, that transferred, went to Power 5, and you just have to wish them the best and say, good luck to you. And then we've also had some kids that, had calls from other schools, sort of, illegal stuff that we've really had to defend ourselves and call people and say, hey, you better stop this. We're going to turn you in. So schools like us, mid-majors, could easily get cherry-picked on this thing.
Well, we had Colt Kublik. He played at Auburn, and he now covers the SEC in Auburn. We were asking him about some of the transfer portal. They had a quarterback that played at North Shore, D. Davis, Demetrius Davis, great player.
Oh, yeah.
And he's in the transfer portal. They've already wrapped up spring. He's not a part of that team. And he was talking about how weird it is across the street from the campus. There are guys in a dorm, football players, who are sitting there waiting for a phone call or thinking that they were going to get a phone call.
While the team practices across the street and goes about their business, I
mean, it's sickening.
That's it's a broken system. And, we're so – and I don't know – the NCAA or we've got to get this thing fixed or it's going to hurt the game of football, especially college football. I mean, it's just it's the silliest thing I've ever seen. And you have so many keys and there's only so many scholarships. I mean, and everybody thinks they're going to get re-signed, but it's became painfully obviously they're not going to get re-signed. So, and I'm going to tell you something else that people have neglected to talk about. The high school coaches are furious because they know that it's affecting the recruiting of their school. We're not looking at as many high school kids because all coaches, whether you like it or not, you're one season away from being on the hot seat. So you think, boy, if I can go get a kid from Ohio State or Texas or somewhere else that's in the portal, that you're going to get a quicker fix, which maybe is not always the case. But I've had so many high school coaches call me and said, Phil, our kids aren't getting looked at, and that's an issue.
Coach, I know football is football at the end of the day, and you weren't out of the game nor just completely separated from it even when you weren't coaching, but was there any kind of just, new adjustments as far as the game itself, the style teams are playing, anything like that for you?
Well, Craig, not really.
Yeah.
I tell you, the Conference USA, that the teams we play this year, they were, and our schedule was a fun schedule. But, UAB is a power team. Marshall was all back and forth. SMU with their new quarterback for the kid from Midway. There were some good things in there. We saw power. We saw spread. We pretty much saw everything and even a little option. I really like what Jeff and them are doing at UTSA with their quarterback. But the thing I love about what Jeff's doing, he'll spread the field, but he's still going to be a physically tough team. And their running back was a special player.
Yeah. And
they had good receivers, good tight ends. But, it was pretty much what I left. Now, not as many teams, I look at the Big 12. I was talking to a friend of mine that's now at Baylor, and it's not as much spread. You remember back in the day when every week it was spread from sideline to sideline. But no, it was pretty much what I thought.
What is more confusing, the transfer portal or knowing what conference you're in?
You know what? How about that? I think, like I said, it's got to calm down. I mean, we had a schedule. Now, think about this. The Conference USA put a schedule out. Hell, we were playing Southern Miss. We were playing Marshall. And they're calling back saying, we're not playing you. We're not coming.
Yeah.
So, you know, Shane Elder is our assistant athletic director in charge of football. He said, hell, I'm spending my time projecting where we might be, what hotel, this, that. I mean, and then finally they got it settled. So, yeah, and, you know, let me say this about the portal, too. You know, the portal, as you said, it works both ways. You know, you have kids, you know, somebody was telling me that they met with their kids after spring, that early spring. They told them, hey, you might want to go, you know, to a lower level. You probably aren't going to play here. And so he said he had 4 or 5 guys do that. But as you said, I think it probably takes more than it gives, though.
Yeah, and it seemed like we see the big names, like Craig was mentioning this earlier. You might have a kid go from Ohio State to Clemson or from Clemson to Georgia or whatever, but there are so many that are just they're just lost. And now they're the ones that made the decision. Now I'm sure they had somebody in their ear or somebody lied to them or whatever. But you know, it's I know we keep going back to that, but it does seem to be kind of
and here's the other thing, and you and I both know, you know. The days of just sticking it out, you know, we're instant gratification. We want it now. If there's something we don't like, we'll leave.
Yep.
That bothers me a little bit. You know, you just and you and I both know. You know, we're older, Dave and Craig. You know that you've watched it. You know, there's something to sticking with the plan, ups and downs, and then finally making it. You know, when I played at A&M. I came in, I was the 18 middle linebacker. I told my mother, Dad, I said, hell, I'm never going to play it. This is back when, you know, hell, we had 75 scholarships. It was back in the meat on the hoof days that they wrote about at Texas. And lo and behold, I'll never forget my dad telling me, he goes, you got to stick it out. He said, things have a way if you keep working. And it did. You know, I wasn't a sophomore starter. I played, but I ended up being a 2-year starter. All-conference player, and I really didn't know if I was ever going to play. And, you know, I just don't see that happen near as much as it used to. You know, and I've had guys who do that, but, you know, I remember at Baylor, we had guys come through that maybe didn't play their freshman, sophomore year, and then all of a sudden they matured, and it's fun to see guys like that make it.
Well, isn't that what it's not what it all is about, but I mean, isn't that about teaching about life's lessons and yeah.
No, I tell people football is the most unique sport there is because I've played them all. It's fun to practice baseball. It's fun to practice basketball, all the different things. Football, 100 degrees, you know, knocking heads every play. Especially offensive, defensive line. I mean, you better have the right attitude and you better have a passion for it. Because to go out there every day and do that, I mean, and work 320 days a year to play 11, 12, 13, maybe 14 games at the most, that's a commitment. And I think it builds so many things that when you get out of football, that you sit there and say, you know what, I'm not afraid to take some time knowing that that I can get this done. I think everything that life's about, football has a way of teaching you. I believe that.
Coach, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago now, Baylor had their pro days, pretty star-studded, a good number of guys there. And I know that you go back with, you know, Jalen Petrie and Terrell Bernard. Those guys are now getting ready for pro careers. But could you have ever imagined Jalen Petrie being talked about as a first-round NFL draft pick? I mean, that's not a guarantee, but that's some of the scuttlebutt right now. And if anything, he's going to go, you know, pretty quickly in the second, I would think. But is that any surprise to you?
Oh, it's you know what? It just tickles me. I just think I have so many memories of going in there. You know, nobody, you know, everybody said they're glad he stayed. Well, he didn't have an option. He couldn't go anywhere else. And I'm not saying that being because he is the most awesome kid. And we went down there. Art saw him, said, Phil, go look at. I said, it's a no-brainer. He could play. And Riley Tejada did a great job. It's just funny after all these years that we still have some ties. I'm coaching Riley's little brother, Ridge, at North Texas. It's just, I remember Bernard, Jim and I went to see him that day. He was in spring practice. He was like 195. Jim said, well, he's not very big. We watched practice. Jim said, about halfway through practice, looked at me and goes, my God, is he a player? And just, and I think their future is just outstanding. And, Jalen is I had a friend that is in the business in the NFL called me and I said, hey, he's everything you want. I mean, I'll be shocked if he's not a first round. Somebody that wants a safety type guy. I mean, he could play safety. He could play nickel. He has cover skills, and his intelligence is off the charts. So it's just fun.
Does he remind you, without comparing, because you hate to compare it, does he remind you anyway of the Honey Badger at LSU, Tyrann Mathieu, who's been at Kansas City?
No doubt. And the thing that he does, he plays with his head. I loved watching him, and Dave and Ron did a great job of using him, and he is so smart. I mean, think about this, David. He can blitz. He can cover. He's an excellent tackler, both in the box and out of the box. And he has the ability in his coverage scheme. I mean, he baits quarterbacks. I mean, he is what the NFL is looking for.
Phil Bennett, defensive coordinator at North Texas, with us on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. So, Randy Clements, we mentioned him, as good an offensive line coach as there is in America. Always know what he's done wherever he's been. And I know he had been kind of maybe, surveying the landscape, so to speak, last season. What's it like to have him on staff?
First of all, he's one of my best friends, and I just he has upgraded us so much. And I say this, coaching matters. And Mike Blesh is a great coach. Mike left the line, went to the quarterback, and getting the right mesh is important. And Clem has come in, and Jim Gush and I talked about after our spring game, and it was Clem all the way through. They don't do something until the spring game, and they got a little scheme that they hadn't used in the spring scrimmage, and here he comes. And I start hollering at him on the other side. I said, okay, Clem, this is like the old days. And he's just smart. He knows how to run the football. He knows how to protect the quarterback. And you know what else he does? It's been fun. Every day we've had 4 or 5 old offensive linemen or Baylor kids at our practice. Durango, Philip Blake came in. I mean, it was a bunch of guys have been up there, and it's fun to see Clem back in his element, especially on our team.
Well, he's as good as there's ever been. And you mentioned what Baylor and Dave Aranda, Ron Roberts, or what they did with Petrie and Bernard or whatever, and the old stories about you guys recruiting them. What are your thoughts about what Dave Aranda's now done? And I know you've talked about him before, you've gushed over him before, but what he's done, and he's starting to piece together some transfers, one or two a year, that help add to the depth and star talent they have on defense.
Oh, no doubt. Obviously, you and I talked about last year, the nose guard that they got a year ago.
Yeah.
Was a huge impact player for him. I think the kid, I think his name's White, that he got from LSU. I think he and Ron will probably do a great job of integrating them in the system. And, I told you this before. I just, after that first year, there was the doubt. And, I just know he's a football coach. And I knew that when he hired Jeff, Jeff has I've known Jeff a long time. And, it truly it helped their defense. I mean, their mentality of running the football, moving the back. from linebacker to, I mean, whoever, that was the move of the year for me. I mean, that guy was a hell of a player. And I just think that they're doing, of course, their strength coach, I'm pretty fond of all. You know, I always laugh. I said, my wife still does stuff for him and his wife in the mortgage, and they just don't get any better than Vic Beloya. And I think he has a complete staff. The people that left, I think he replaced them with good people. And one of the things I think he's doing, Smoak, that I really like, he's hiring people that knows him and they know what to expect, you know, from him. And I think that means a lot.
Phil, it's always great to talk to you, man. We love it every single time. We appreciate your time.
Guys, you know how much I enjoy you guys, and I'm glad I got the full smoke today.
Yeah, you did. And by the way, the picture we now, put that up, Jack. We have a picture that Taylor Bryan sent, and you are you have that angry face. You're barking. I mean, it's full throttle, Phil Bennett.
You know what? At 67, I need to get a little bit happier, don't I?
Thank you, man. It's great to have you, as always.
All right,
Thank
enjoyed you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach.
The segments we started back when we started this show just over 2 years ago, when we had him on every week during college football season, was just gold.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as he decides that he's hanging up the whistle for good, we got to reinstate that because that was fun. You didn't get much of that last year, obviously, because he was coaching up in Denton. But good to see him in his element. And I know that I didn't want to ask him about it, but he lost a pair of defensive linemen, some brothers that had to be a sore spot, the Murphys. That's just part of the deal, is kind of the give and take of the transfer portal. But, yeah, I didn't want to ask about them specifically, but I think we got all of his thoughts on the transfer portal and kind of how it operates. But that was a tough loss for them. But, they did turn around and rebound despite losing that bowl game. They finished the regular season on a nice win streak. They got Ragsdale back there at running back. That's one player that immediately jumps to mind for me. He was really good. I do believe they lose DeAndre Torrey, though, to the NFL. He was fantastic, but I think that Ragsdale and company will be good there. They got the quarterback back. And they've had a good run of wide receivers over the years as well. So I'm sure that I haven't looked into that, quite frankly. But, I mean, they've had such a good run that I'm sure they've got some guys there. So, I mean, there's some pieces in place, and he'll have another year under his belt, and I'm sure that defense will be that much better for it as well. But, yeah, I mean, that move to conferences, that was a good question about, what's harder to keep track of. Because I was sitting there like, okay, what year do they move in?
Yep.
And then
who's in it?
Who's with them? And then when does that start? And then who leaves? And, all of that, it really is confusing. I mean, we really do need like a full-blown map with arrows pointing when, like, dates and everything else, because it's just a lot to try and keep track of. So I can only imagine for coaches who don't pay attention to the headlines nearly as much as we do, how confusing it must be for them. But, yeah, it's always good to talk